Well, most of you I have seen when we've been down here volunteering, or a few of you I've known for 2 or 3 years or longer. We've raised our children together, or we raised ourselves together. But I am Pat Tipton, and I pastor 2 churches in Church Hill. Old Union, which serves lunches for you all the first of the month, and then Lebanon Methodist and Carter, both of them are in the valley. They help with some things too. I'm blessed to have 2 churches that are adamant about doing missions and helping others and reaching out. This is an important thing. Sad to say that we've ever had to come up with this and do it. But as you can see on that first slide, it says nurturing trust within communities. Whether we're here or in another church setting, fellowship hall, or whatever, what we want to do is to nurture trust and faith, and that they feel safe. Anybody that comes in, that's the most important thing, is that they feel safe. Why are we doing this? As you can see, Safe Sanctuaries is the standard to which congregations pledge to care for those with whom they are in ministry and those who offer themselves as leaders in ministry with children, youth, and vulnerable adults. We recognize that this topic and these discussions can be difficult and triggering for some people. So if you need to step out or you want to discuss something one-on-one with someone later, just let us know. And this is biblically mandated. Mark tells us, whoever welcomes one of these children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me isn't actually welcoming me, but the one who sent me. And Corinthians tells us, just as the body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. I like to say, when I'm telling people that question why we're doing this, and some people are like, well, I took that 25 years ago. Well, look how much things have changed in the last 25 years. But I like to remind them, whether it's children or it's adults, that could be Jesus that you're encountering right there and you're taking care of. So we want to, take this seriously. It is a tradition of the church, which most of us know this, that when a child is baptized, we promise with God's help that we're going to order their lives and raise them and help them in that part and strengthen their relationship with God. And then also this was an action of our general conference, the ones that tell me and Will what to do. And this was updated in 2016 prior to the pandemic. The pandemic has really changed a lot of things for us. I think there are things in this that we probably need to tweak a little bit, but we haven't got there yet. We set up these policies and procedures for people who are volunteering in places like this or pretty much anywhere else. And if you think about it, if you're in church, you're going to come in contact, in my case, they're going to come in contact with children or youth and vulnerable adults. But here, you're mostly the older adults and vulnerable adults. But you want to make sure that you do the best that you can with them, because the ministry here has been entrusted to you, and so have they. So we want to protect everybody when we're doing this. We want to protect Shades of Grace. We want to protect the people that are volunteering. And then we want to protect the people that come in. Okay, the next slide tells us what is considered children, which is birth to age 12. And a youth is considered 13 to 18. And then vulnerable adults is anything over 18. And that could be an older adult, or it could be somebody with physical and mental needs, anything that causes, what we would call a disability of some sort that would keep them from taking care of themselves and making legal decisions for themselves. So why do we think the church is at risk? Well, the church is supposed to be a trusting institution, are we not? And faith groups host programs in youth and vulnerable adults. And I know we used to, before the pandemic, people would come in to get a hot meal because they knew this was a place that they could come to get a hot meal. Now they come to get their bag lunches, but they know this is a place that they can depend on. And also people trust it because they know people that are associated with the church in any way have been screened and are not going to be put anywhere that they can put themselves or the person coming in danger. And the church's stance on hospitality is to encourage close relationships with others while requiring this training at the same time with appropriate and interpersonal boundaries. Appropriate and interpersonal boundaries. Guys, anybody should be doing this, but this hits with the guys especially. If somebody comes up to hug you, give them a side hug. So that way, especially if it's a female hugging a male, they can't say anything about that you were trying to do something. I've gotten so used to doing that side hug that that's about the only way I hug anymore, unless somebody just comes straight at me with that hug. So we screen our volunteers and we implement the operational procedures and all the programs. We train paid and volunteer workers, and we report suspected incidents of child abuse according to the state law, and in this case, elder abuse. And we respond appropriately to both victim and the accused, as well as to the media inquiries if there's an incident. Okay, we'll stop right there for a second and let me tell you, I only have one state to deal with, right? Just different counties. So in Tennessee, I want you to know that we are a mandatory reporting state. And that means if you suspect, you don't have to know for a fact, but if you suspect something is happening to a child or an older adult, you are required to report it. And in doing so, you can tell what you've seen to Pastor Will or Jimmy, and then if they feel necessary, you're going to call DCS or whomever needs to be contacted. And in that case, most likely, they're going to want you to tell what is going on. But if it's someone that's in immediate danger, skip all the other stuff and call 911. Now, it says inquiries from the media. Your comment is no comment. You leave that to Will, or depending on the situation, he's going to leave it to Scott or the bishop, depending on how serious the matter is. So let's get educated about what is considered abuse. It's considered to be physical, sexual, emotional, ritual, neglect and abandonment, financial abuse, or exploitation. Now, some of those you would think you would never have to think about those things happening, like financial abuse. That could be somebody taking advantage of an older person, and most of the time it's somebody in the family, not necessarily someone outside. But those are things that you want to take notice of. Neglect and abandonment is one that is easily seen. We'll talk about ritual and emotional and some of these other things in a minute. Physical abuse is deliberate or intentional bodily harm done to a child, a youth, or a vulnerable adult that is non-accidental. Some of the things that you can notice that would make this stand out that you need to kind of pay attention to is hostility and aggression toward others, destructive behavior toward their self and others or property, unexplainable fractures or bruises, and that's a big one, fearful of parents and or other adults, burns, facial injuries, repeated bruises, and extreme changes in behavior. Now, I could give you a story for each one of those because I spent 33 years working with special needs children and young adults. But the biggest thing that you'll notice is that change in their behavior. When I was working at Holston Middle in Blountville, I could almost set my clock. 2:15 when we would take him to the bus, and about 1:50, he would start acting up. A boy that was probably about this tall, and he would start just acting up in the class, trying to hit people or whatever. If he didn't misbehave in the class, he started when we were getting ready to put him on the bus. And there were many a times that we just run our finger through the belt loops and picked him up and put him on the bus like this. And the sad part is he wasn't upset with us. He knew what he was going home to. And he didn't want to go home. And we had to let him go home. And that is a hard call to make. Trust me. Let me give you a definition of sexual abuse. It's defined as, but not limited to, consensual sexual act between two minors and or a minor and adults. You notice that it says two minors now. It used to be just minor and adult. It may include fondling, intercourse, incest, pornographic exploitation, or exposure. Anyone under the age of 18 and certain vulnerable adults are not able to give legal consent, that would be considered abuse. The two minors, it's gotten to be where a lot of stepbrothers, stepchildren, in those cases that they have been abusing one or the other. Minors and adults is still pretty much the same. Anything that, not consensual in both instances. So, some possible indicators is a lot like we've already talked about. Depression, withdrawal, lack of self-esteem. That's a big one. That's one of the bigger indicators. Threatens or attempts suicide. That's more your older teenagers, middle school, late middle school, high school age. Speech and or eating disorders. That would fall into your special needs, your regular ones too, but more your special needs, those that have issues with talking or eating, especially the talking part. They might begin stuttering a lot more than normal. If they hadn't been stuttering at all, they might start, or there will be things different about their speech patterns, even their eating patterns. And they're going to be either extremely passive, aggressive in their behavior. They excessively seek out adult approval, especially seeking out male approval. for some reason it's been more male than female, and I guess it's because of the daddy figure, but they do seek out that adult that they can be comfortable with. Advanced sexual knowledge and or behavior, depression, promiscuous behavior, difficulty sitting or walking, and I wouldn't count too much on the sitting and walking part because ADHD kids, and I'm one of them, can't sit still very long. Bruising or bleeding in private areas, frequent headaches or extreme fatigue, and this might be, especially if it's school age, it might be somebody that has to go to see the nurse a lot. And if you notice about the same time every day, and if they have sexually transmitted diseases. Neglect and abandonment is endangering an individual's health, safety, or welfare. Abandonment is desertion of a child, youth, or vulnerable adult by one who assumed responsibility for care or custody of that person. You can see some of the things that are indicators, especially if it's an older adult or special needs, if they are telling you they're hungry a lot, or if they look like they're have malnutrition, or their hygiene and things are different, that's a good indicator for that age group. The last class that I did, several of the adults said, "What is ritual abuse?" And then once we started talking about it, it made sense to them. But ritual abuse is the regular, intentional, physical, or sexual or psychological violation of an individual to appeal to a higher authority or power. We don't see much witchcraft, but we will see stones and things like that they'll, push that on the person and say, "Oh, this stone's going to give you wealth," or "This one's going to make you feel so much better, you're not going to feel that pain anymore," and things like that. And then you're going to experience some of the same indicators. They don't like the dark. They have flashbacks, mood swings, and a lot of these indicators are the same in all of the categories. Financial abuse, that one's kind of self-explanatory, but some of your indicators might be things in the home start to disappear. They might talk about jewelry missing, or maybe a piece of like a vase or something that they had that was special, or they complain about other things disappearing. Checkbook is missing or does not balance is the biggest indicator. So now is where we get down to the nitty-gritty of the basic safety procedures. I need you to remember 3 numbers: 2, 5, and 6. If you can remember those numbers in your head, you're going to remember these rules, and they'll stay with you, and they make sense. 2 adult rule: there should be 2 adults present at all time, which married couples count as 1. Because if it was in a court setting or something, they can't, I've lost my word, testify against each other. Then we have the 5-year rule. The youngest person in the group of adults should be at least 5 years older than the youngest person in your younger group, which I don't think you'll have problems with that here, because you might have teenagers, but I wouldn't think the 5-year rule would be too much of a problem at that point. 6-month hospitality rule. They say 6 months. I like to say a year. If the person that you're wanting to let volunteer or put in some kind of leadership position, you want them to be around here at least 6 months before putting them in charge of anything. I say a year because sometimes at 6 months they still will, if things get to be too hot, they'll take off. 18 is the earliest age that you can background check someone. I don't think we have to worry about the windows. Open door policy and open door counseling means that whoever is doing the counseling should not be behind the door with the door closed unless there's someone else in there with them. My policy is never to close the door. I don't know how Will did it, but I would never close the door, but I would make sure there's another adult close by that could tell if something happened. Just because lots of times when you're having those counseling sessions, there's things that need to remain confidential. Okay, safety procedures. And most of this stuff, guys, is common sense. You need to have the appropriate equipment, and it needs to be properly supervised. Adequate insurance, oh my goodness. That's a biggie these days because every time you turn around, you're getting sued for something. And I didn't think we would ever have to have insurance on a lot of the things that we have to in the church today. Appropriate sleeping arrangements, that's not necessarily something that you all would have to worry about here, but others do that have youth groups. There can't be adults in the room unless they are related. Like parents could stay with their own children, but Jimmy couldn't be in a room with me and 2 or 3 other girls. Just, like I said, most of this stuff is common sense. You need to have an annual training every year to just make sure that things haven't changed. If they have added anything, or maybe there's been some changes in your policy, because not all policies read the same. They are designed to fit the church or missional church in this case. This policy would only work for here. And one thing I forgot to say about the policies, Jimmy, is anything that's written in that policy, if somebody was to come in and check if there had been a report or a question of what's been going on, whatever you say you're doing in that policy, you better be doing here in person. You have to do the same thing. So if you say you're going to have 2 people posted at the door, you better have 2 people posted at the door. Otherwise, they can come back on you. Cybersecurity. This is the biggest one now. There's no such thing as privacy in cyberspace. It's floating around out there in the cosmic places somewhere. But you need to consider anything and everything on the internet as public, not information. Hackers are so good today. They can get your information very easily. I've had that happen to me just recently, and I have a lot of security on my stuff. But they could get your email, your password, banking information. I mean, there's just no way to keep everything safe. But I encourage you to do it as safe as you can. Get parents' permission, or in this case, you need to get the person's permission. If you take pictures, videos, or quotes of the person, if you're showing them anywhere if it's going to be in public or on Facebook or things like that. Emailing, direct messaging, calling, texting, or sending data to a child or a youth or a vulnerable adult, that is something that you don't want to do unless you're sending the same thing to the parent. You don't want to share any full name or contact information. If you're posting something on, we'll say Facebook, for instance, I encourage you not to put names. But if you do put names, especially if it's a minor, don't put anything but the last name. That makes it a little bit harder for them to get information on them and track them down. But they can do it. Okay. Never post easily identifiable information online. If you communicate by email, use the BCC option or the CC option so that each recipient sees only what is sent to them. And you need to be careful when you're transmitting event dates, times, locations, and participants. That can be something that can be easily copied and hacked into. Limit very limitedly what is communicated in an electric prayer request. That would be like your Facebook pages and so forth, because people can see that. They can get information about the person, and we don't want to expose their confidentiality either. Okay, safety measures for sharing photos electronically. You need to consider things that are copyrighted. For any photo posted or shared electronically, it's considered copyrighted. Anything, say I brought lunches down here last Friday, and if you took my picture and you posted it, consider that copyrighted. But you also have to have my permission to post it. When posting photos, refrain from using names and it says never use last names or identifiable information, but it probably would be better just to share a first name and not the last name. But you need to check your photos for vulnerable or compromising situations and make sure that they uphold your mission, what you're ascribing to here at Shades of Grace. Limit access to photos by employing the use of a password, and I would probably limit how many people have that password. And as I said, obtain permission to use these photos elsewhere, whether it be a website, the local paper, a journal, and consider using stock or purchase photos. Okay, and now safety measures for using social networking. Social networking sites such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever is the going thing now. There's a couple of new ones that I don't know about, but make sure that you select the appropriate privacy setting on there. Restrict who can be your friend, and even at that, people can still get your information. Use higher level security features even if you have a restricted profile, such as requiring your approval of all comments posted to your site. Facebook is a good example. You can get a friend request from somebody that's already a friend of yours, and if you don't question that friend, you may be answering somebody that is hacking or whatever. And I encourage you not to accept that request. I would ask the person if they send a request first. Do not post anything to your social networking site that you would not want attached to your resume or printed in the church newsletter or bulletin, or in our case, I say that we don't want the bishop to see. Remove or do not post inappropriate comments, photos, etc. Encourage children, youth, and vulnerable adults to follow these same guidelines. And you may want to monitor them a little closer than you do others because of that. Okay, our reporting procedures. There are 3 kinds of actions church staff and volunteers should report: accidents, incidents, and suspected abuse. Accident is something that occurs if the individual gets hurt, like if a child falls off the swing and breaks an arm or hurts themselves, a tooth knocked down or whatever. You need to make a report on that. An incident report does not require reporting to DCS, and neither does the accident unless it's something that didn't happen in front of witnesses. Sunday school teacher loses it with the class as an example. An adult in charge walks out of the classroom to get supplies and leaves the children briefly unattended. Well, that's an accident waiting to happen right there, I'm telling you. You never, if you've got children in Sunday school or whatever, even if it's youth, you do not leave them unattended. You're just waiting for something major to happen. Let me back up just a little bit, because you all do this part, because you do provide shelter sometimes. And this is really troubling for me when I think about adequate shelter. Adequate shelter for minors means a home that's safe, sanitary, and secure, meeting specific standards for things like lead paint, electrical outlets, and fire safety. That's a given. You don't want to have that around any of your children or anything. Smoke detectors, sanitary kitchen, but there's specific regulations for foster care homes that require children do not sleep in the same room as adults and set limits on a bedroom. Now, this is the one that gets me. Adequate shelter. What do you think would qualify as adequate shelter? Y'all can talk. A roof over your head. Someplace to go to the bathroom. A mattress and some water and electricity. That's adequate shelter. It's terrible. But we have a lot of people living in that situation. And we want to be aware of that. You may think when it gets colder weather, I'm sure it happens here, it may not be everybody that lives out on the street and lives under the gazebo and the breezeway there where the library is. It might be somebody that's just lost their job and lost their home and look like the rest, dressed nice and whatever. We just never know what the person is actually going through. So we have to be careful. But at the same time, we want to share a little Jesus with them and act like Jesus would. We don't want to be hateful or unkind. We want to be welcoming. Reporting abuse. Georgia, which we don't have to worry about. Georgia and Tennessee are mandatory reporting states. Virginia is another ball game. So when I'm doing it there, I have to switch completely, or in Appalachia District, we've got Tennessee and Virginia, so it kind of muddles the waters a little bit. But when you're going to make a report, you need to make it within 24 hours of the information that you've got. That's Georgia and Tennessee because they're mandatory states of reporting. A report may be made by calling the abuse hotline. I'll give you some numbers here in a minute. In the state, Child Protective Services, or your local police. And then you have your local church safe sanctuary policies should have clear reporting procedures to conform to the state reporting while reporting that safety. So depending on how severe the incident is, I would just go ahead and report to Will or Jimmy and let them advise you how to go from there. It does get kind of muddled in there, and that's one phone call that you don't want to ever have to make, let me tell you. That was the hardest thing I ever had to do, so think about that. Even if it's an adult, and I've had to make that phone call too. Make sure that you record details. Make sure when the accident or whatever you've been told about abuse or anything, record it right then so that you don't forget details before you tell it to the person that needs to get it. And you know which church staff to report to. I wouldn't go ahead and call DCS without having Will or Jimmy there. That way you've got backup to the situation. Keep this information confidential. Talk only to the appropriate authorities, and only designated person is to speak to the media. If they ask you anything, it's always no comment. No comment. I like saying that to them because I don't like to talk to them, but no comment. Okay, the next slide gives you where to report. And most of the time it's like Georgia's, it's 1855, and it's Georgia Child. And I think that's how Tennessee's comes out, Tennessee Child. But keep these numbers handy. I would even post them somewhere around here where everybody could see them. And of course, if anybody's in immediate danger, call 911. Any questions about anything? Scenarios or anything like that? Question back here? An at-risk adult? I would consider it somebody like I worked with in the school system because I had a lot of nonverbal communicators. Somebody that might not be capable of living by themselves, handling things on their own, so to speak. And it could be somebody that would be just like us that's gotten older, and they may have children that take advantage of things, especially bank accounts and things like that if they think they're not in the will or something like that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can fall into that category. So probably what you're thinking is an at-risk adult is probably in that category. That's a good question. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Say that one more time. What you need to tell them? Exactly what you've been told or exactly what you've seen? That would depend on your policies. And say, for instance, here you're going to tell Will, so they would take care of filling out anything that needed to be filled out. You just need to call the appropriate people. Well, let me give you some statistics here. I always like to close with this. Where'd my eyeballs go? This happens every day in America. Every 2 seconds, a public student is suspended. Every 9 seconds, a student drops out. Every 20 seconds, a baby is born to an unmarried mother. Every 43 seconds, a public school student is corporally punished. In this area, I'd like to know where that is, because some of them still need that. Every 31 seconds, a child is arrested. Every 47 seconds, a child is confirmed abused or neglected. Every 49 seconds, a baby is born into poverty. Every minute, a baby is born without health insurance. Every 2 minutes, a baby is born into extreme poverty. Every 2 minutes, a baby is born with low birth rate. That's a result of alcohol abuse, drug abuse. A baby is born to a teen mother every 3 minutes. A child is arrested for drug offense every 5 minutes. A child is arrested for a violent offense every 9 minutes. A baby dies before their first birthday every 23 minutes. A child or teen is injured or killed with a gun every 32 minutes. And a child or teen is injured with a gun every 39 minutes. And I would dare say those 2 things have not been updated since a lot of these school shootings have happened in the last year or so. Every hour and 6 minutes, a child or teen dies from an accident. Every 3 hours and 8 minutes, a child or teen is killed with a gun. Every 3 hours and 33 minutes, a child or teen commits suicide. And since COVID, that has been upped, and it also includes adults. And recent statistics show that 1 in 3 girls are sexually abused by the time they're 18. Most likely by the time they're 15. 1 in 4, it used to be 5, but it's 4 now, boys will be sexually abused before that age. And that is why it has gotten to the teen on teen with abuse and things that it didn't used to be. It could be, even in this day and time, we see 2 boys or 2 girls abusing each other. So this is something that's important that we do and we carry out and work together with everybody. If it's a question that those 2 can't answer, call me. I don't care. If I don't know the answer, I'll find out. Because this is something that's near and dear to me that I want to make sure it doesn't matter whether it's at the church I pastor or somebody else. I want to make sure everybody feels safe and comfortable. Because this should be the place that they come to that they feel the safest and they can get the most out of it. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am. This one's just the United States. And it will also break it down to Tennessee. It will break it down to color. And if you go on to Google and pull up 1 day in America, and it'll give you where to go for all of these. It breaks it down by poverty level. I mean, pretty much anything you want to see. And some of them, it's very astounding. Becky, you've been awful quiet. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll close us out in a word of prayer. And Pastor Will has some things to hand out up here. And I'll be around up here if there's something you didn't feel comfortable asking or need some other information. Feel free to holler at me. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day, and I thank you for this group of people that have come together, that have seen the importance of trying to make your house safe. And that's something that we always want to do, Lord, is to keep your people safe and that they feel safe and loved. That's one of the most important things, is they feel loved and they feel wanted. And I just thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this for them, and that when we leave this place, that we know we are on a mission for you, and that's to make disciples for you, for the transformation of this world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all for being here, and be mindful that we are a different kind of congregation here. So wherever you've heard the word child or whatever, just think of a vulnerable adult, because we deal with lots of situations. And I think it's important, we don't have a children's ministry here. We welcome children, but when children come, please do not leave them unattended at any time, okay? We have to keep them with us. So that's just something to be reminded of, to be very careful about, okay? But again, thank you all. Are these the little certificates? Please come by and pick one up. I know that all of this information, we've all heard it, but we could hear it every month, every 2 months. And we need to get it until it's in our mind every day. I say a lot about safety. You hear me say that a lot. We do have a safe sanctuary policy. It's in the office, and you're welcome to look at it at any time. But it explains why wherever there has to be a window open, just like to the office or to the recording studio. You cannot be alone with someone who is vulnerable in a room by yourself without windows, okay? That's always very, very important to remember. And the people we deal with may be 70 years old, but if they're vulnerable, then we have to keep in our minds that we're dealing with vulnerable people, with children. So just always be mindful of that. And if you have any questions, see me or Pat or whomever. Thank you for coming and doing this today. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here. Okay? There are certificates here. Please stop by and pick one up. This is just for you to look over and glean whatever has already been said today. But more than anything else, when you look at it, remind you that it's important.